This is Dustin. I'm
Morning.
sorry, I forgot your son's name.
Drake.
Dustin's son.
All right,
You guys
Patrick.
know Pat Trenton, and I'm behind the camera. I'm going to give this to Pat. And Dustin has what we think is the original yellow RL22 from the movie RAD. So he's going to tell the story on how it all happened, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Cool. I'm Dustin Howell, and my son and I, Drake, drove down from Portland, Oregon.
You want to come be in it?
Yeah, come on, Drake. Come on over, man. You're part of this journey. You've had to put up with your dad and all the crazy stuff, man. So I'd love you to be part of this, man. This is
Was he
pretty
nuts?
special.
Was he going nuts over this stuff?
He drove me nuts in a good way. In a good way, man.
And he's like, man, I don't want to hear it
It
anymore.
was kind of crazy. I'll pick up the story. I'll touch base on why the bike's important and why RL's history is important and kind of why I'm all into this thing and it gets me excited. It's a pretty typical story. I was a young kid when RAD came out. I did a lot of flatland. I did some vert. Tried to keep up with the tricks, the cool guy tricks and all the stuff. And then of course RAD hit the scene. And it was a big influence on my childhood. And like a lot of guys, you probably hopefully see this video. It's a very similar story. And the bike that really captured my attention from the movie RAD was RL's bike. Infatuation with the RL22 and absolutely fell in love with the bike back in the day. And I grew up in a neighborhood where you didn't see a red line. You didn't. It was pretty uncommon. And you know, we'd go to the bike store to see a red line. Got to see it at the store. So love the movie, love the bike. Met RL in '88 at a Masters show up in Portland, Oregon. Got his autograph. We were just talking. I've still got the T-shirts.
What year was that?
That was '88. So the Masters stopped.
You just said that, huh?
Stopped.
That's how short my memory is.
No, you're good, man.
It's like, oh wait, I think you just said that.
Yeah. The Masters stopped in Portland, Oregon in '88, and I was a kid with a black Sharpie and a white T-shirt, and got a bunch of signatures, and RL's was one of them. I got a T-shirt on Saturday. I got a T-shirt on Sunday. Still have the T-shirts. I'll have to shoot you a picture of them. That's pretty cool. So that's kind of the interest in BMX and freestyle and why the movie and why this particular bike, the Hazard Yellow that RL rode and biked in the movie.
And I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. You guys got to know that Dustin and his son just drove from Portland, Oregon, and the bike is sitting in his truck about 20 feet from me. I haven't seen it yet.
Under a couple of moving blankets.
Yeah, under a couple of moving blankets.
Behind some tinted windows.
That's a hell of a drive.
We made the drive.
Yeah. So this ought to be pretty interesting. Anyway,
So, no, perfect, Matt. No, that's an important part of the story. So I put out my feelers a couple of years ago on the BMX forums and reached out to some contacts that I had to find out where RL's Hazard Yellow, where it ever went, and if the whereabouts of the bike were known. Did anybody know anything? And I came up with nothing. There were some rumors about some people that knew some people and a lot of speculation, but nobody stepped forward with a concrete location and or owner of the bike. It didn't really get me too far. About a year ago, I sold a BMX item on eBay, a very valuable BMX item on eBay, to a gentleman from New Jersey.
Can we know what it was?
I sold him a set of Woody Itson, new old stock, pink ACSZ wheels.
Wow.
Which in the Trickstar world, Woody Itson world, pink world, a new old stock set of Itson Z's, laced with NOS stuff. I mean, show quality new old stock. They're beautiful. Perfect heads.
Wow.
Perfect heads.
Big bucks.
Big bucks. Went on eBay for big bucks. And transaction went smooth as could be. Gentleman was based out in New Jersey. He paid me right away. Everything was cool. as we're messaging back and forth, we start talking about collections and, hey, what are you into and what are you building? You must be building a Trickstar because you bought these wheels, and this particular wheel in this particular color belongs in a pink Trickstar, blah, blah, blah. So we started comparing notes on collections, and I happened to find my childhood bike that I rode as a kid about 4 years ago, and it was an 87 GT Pro Freestyle Tour T model in Dayglow pink. My bike, my real bike, which had left at a garage sale in the 90s, and then I just got it back about 4 years ago, which is kind of what sparked my interest back in the hobby. So we're talking back and forth, and I said, hey, what's your favorite item out of your collection? I told him that my favorite item was my childhood bike. Like, I was really lucky to have found it, and I own it back, and that was cool. And he said that
you found your original bike.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
After how many years?
Memory serves me right. I sold it at a garage sale in 92 or 93.
At a garage sale?
In my dad's front yard.
Wow.
Because I started driving and discovered girls and got into sports and stuff, right? So my bike, which was my transportation to get around, got replaced by a car. So I started driving, like, oh, my bike. I guess I could live without my bike. Put my money into my car and take my girl. Luckily, I married her. So same girl. Same girl.
All right.
Married her.
Cool.
Drake's mom. And so my childhood bike ended up coming back into my life, and then it kind of lit this spark, and I had this interest in I got all juiced up again, man, about bikes and red lines and GTs and dynos and all the stuff, you know. And so the guy that bought my pink ACSCs in New Jersey mentioned in a message to me that his crown jewel, his prized possession, we're just comparing notes, was the RAD bike.
Right.
And I said, hey man, do you mind shooting me your phone number? I'd like to talk to you. Well, he sent me his phone number. I called him, and he answers the phone. I said, hey man, I put my feelers out a while back, and I came up with nothing. What RAD bike? Is it the RAD bike? Is it RL's red line? Is that the one? He goes, yeah.
He was sure of it.
He was sure of it. He was sure.
This guy's pretty straight, if I remember.
He is a straight. I gotta say, I hope he sees this because long distance deal.
Yeah.
New Jersey, Oregon, a total stranger, guy I just met over the phone, and he had paid me for these wheels and was, you know, Johnny on the spot in terms of payment and communication. Everything was awesome, man. Just got a good vibe from him.
Yeah.
And so we're on this phone call, and he mentions that he's got the RAD bike. The one, the Hazard Yellow RL20ii. Whoa, man, whoa. So my next question was, well, where in the heck did you get that?
Yeah.
And he started telling me about his passion for collecting 80s items. It wasn't just bikes. He's into toys, majorly into toys. He's into Rocky memorabilia, like really cool stuff.
Really?
Like stuff that's, when you see it, you're like, you have that?
Yeah. Wow.
Where did you, so he's into the scene, man.
We were talking about Rocky yesterday, remember?
Were you? Yeah. Memorabilia or what movie?
No,
just
we were talking about Talia Shire, Rocky's wife.
Yeah.
I won't take much time, but
that could be a video in itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did when we were promoting RAD, we did a thing together with some riders, and she came, and you know, it's bike riders, right?
Yeah.
You know, t-shirt and
bike
Levi's.
guys.
And she showed up in this long white trench coat and limousine, and tried to talk about bikes. You know, it was interesting.
Movie star.
Yeah.
Bike guys.
Yeah.
Those are two
totally different worlds. Yeah. But yeah, she was nice enough. But we were just talking about it the other day, and then you brought it.
That's awesome.
That's weird.
Well, and what blew my mind is that when I went back to meet Eric, I'll get to that in a minute. When I went back to meet him, I got to see his collection, and that's when it said, I'm like, okay, he is a heavy hitter, 80s all-in collector with a great eye.
Yeah.
That buys only the best stuff.
Yeah.
Like attention to spot the right stuff and acquire the right stuff, and obviously it has the right contacts to find these things. Right?
Yeah, right.
It was super cool. So, long call with Eric. He tells me a little bit of the backstory of where he found the RAD bike and why he had an interest in the RAD bike. Real similar to my story. Loved the movie back in the day. love what you'd done on a bike, and just like, you know, it's a chance to own like the holy grail of BMX bikes, right? So he was all into it for the same reason I was all into it. But the bike wasn't for sale. So good news is, think I got a lead on it. Bad news is, the bike's not for sale. Huh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did ask him for
That's fun.
was, could you just put me in line? If there's a line, could you put me in the line, and could you put me to the front of the line? How do you get to the front of the line?
Yeah, right. I like that.
So he started asking me questions like, why are you so into this bike? What's the passion for this bike instead of all the other bikes that are out there? And I told him, I said, I met RL in '88. I met him at the Masters in Portland, Oregon. He signed my t-shirt. I was a big fan. I'd get the magazines and I'd try to do the tricks, and I'd watch RAD. You know, the whole deal, man. He's like, that's pretty cool. He goes, you still have a t-shirt that RL Osborn signed in '88? I said, yeah, I got 2 of them actually. He goes, I'd like to see them. I said, okay, I'll dig them out of the box and send you pictures. So I did it, took them out of the box, took a picture of the autograph, sent it to him. He was like, wow, man. And I said, get this, I actually had my hair done. This is gonna create a stir, dude, because there's pictures.
Yeah.
I went and got the perm. I don't think I told you this when we were talking earlier this year, but I went out and got was your hair naturally curly?
Yeah.
Okay, mine wasn't.
But well,
I
don't,
had
don't
hair.
feel bad because I had fake hair braided in. I had cornrows. I had all kinds of crap. So don't feel bad.
So I had hair. I had a full head of hair, and I had a perm, and it was awesome. And your hairstyle of the era kind of inspired the hairdo that I was rocking.
Okay.
So I was all in on this RL Osborn thing, right?
Yeah.
Had everything but the bike, and some wannabe tricks. And so Eric promised me, I'll let you know if and when I ever decide to sell the bike. I'll let you know. I said, man, that's all I can ask for. That sounds awesome. Okay, so months go by. I get a phone call from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Eric calls me. Oh, better grab this one. Hang on.
Yeah.
He said, hey man, it's Eric. And I promised to call you. And I'm a man of my word. And I'm calling you because I think it might be time to have a serious conversation about the RAD bike.
Wow.
Do you want to have the conversation about the RAD bike? And I said, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's sit down and let's have that talk. The goal being, at the end of the phone call, this is what I was trying to drive towards because I didn't want to miss the opportunity. You know, a long time coming. I didn't want to miss the opportunity. It sounded like there was an opportunity finally sitting in front of me. So Eric and I had a long conversation. We got into more detail about the bike. One of the things, RL, that I was really tuned into was, do we know?
Yeah.
Are we 100? What paperwork, documentation, what exists? And this is where the RL Osborn RAD bike gets a little bit gray. Let's just call it what it is, man.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit gray. The reason why it's gray is the serial number of that bike has never been documented, to the best of my knowledge, written down, photographed, nothing. And I talked to Lynn Caston about that too, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I went to some great lengths to try to figure out if anybody on the face of the earth had a serial number to your bike. The answer that I came up with, after rattling a lot of cages, man, bugging a lot of folks, was no.
Wow.
No, and no again. So Eric didn't have the serial number, didn't have any documentation, but had a good gut feeling and a great story that it was your old bike. We hammer out a number on the phone. I probably won't get into that level of detail on the video. That's something I've shared with you, and
Right.
it was a number that made you go,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah.
That was the reaction. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. That was my reaction. Wow.
Yeah.
And what I asked him for...
I keep thinking about your wife when you told her, hey, I'm going to buy this 30-year-old bike or whatever.
It's scratched up, scuffed. Think it's the one.
Yeah.
Not for sure. We think it's the one.
Right.
So
Wow.
we hammer out over the phone an agreed upon price for a transaction to take place. And what I asked him for, I said, would it be okay if I flew out to New Jersey and visually inspected the bike before any money changes hands? And he's being straight shooter, no problem, dude. Sounds good. You let me know what day you fly to Newark, I'll be there to pick you up.
Yeah.
Done. Okay, so now we're making progress, right? We've got a deal kind of moving, we got a price, he's ready to sell it, I'm ready to buy it. Now we need to make sure that I'm not paying way too much,
right,
for a Hazard Yellow 85 that I could buy off eBay today, right? Because that's a thing, dude, that's a thing. So I reached out to your son. I reached out to Dylan.
yeah,
And I contacted Dylan, and I contacted him through Facebook. And I said, hey, Dylan. And I had never talked to Dylan before. I just didn't want to be a crazy weirdo and try to track you down. I did it in a way that I was hoping would be thoughtful and respectful of your time and not getting pestered.
right.
That was the goal.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome, man. And so I reached out to Dylan. I said, hey, Dylan, I'm a BMX guy from Portland, Oregon. And I think I have found, located, have a deal brewing on your dad's bike that he rode in the movie RAD. And he responds, oh, that's awesome. Cool. I've heard about that bike. Right?
Yeah.
He kind of knew what was up. Heard about that bike. I said, is there any way that you could put me in touch with your dad? Because I'd like to talk to him about the bike. And when I get on a plane from Portland, Oregon to Newark, New Jersey, in the middle of what ended up being a freaking snowstorm, I don't know if we talked about that, but worst weekend of the year to fly out of Portland was that weekend. It was a mess. Is there a way that I could talk to RL and figure out and have a checklist of things to kind of go through so that when I get there and I'm in front of the bike, I can really scrutinize the bike and make sure it jives, make sure that it checks out and passes the sniff test. And he said, sure. I said, great. So I shot Dylan my phone number, and shortly thereafter you were calling me, which was awesome, man. Thank you. That really helped me out. It gave me some confidence that what I was doing was kind of working. You know? And I was just trying to dot the I's, cross the T's, and not make a big, huge error in terms of what I was thinking that I was getting versus what I ended up getting, right? You're just trying to minimize the risk.
Absolutely.
That's what you're trying to do. Smart business at that point. So I bought airfare to Newark, New Jersey. We had about an hour and a half long call, you and I, to put together a list. There was a list, and it was your list. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because the list that you gave me is a different list than what the BMX community as a whole has put together. There's other lists that exist.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh, buddy. There's all sorts of things.
Because there's guys out there that know more about the bikes I rode than I do.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, but there's something about that bike that I know that I can tell if it's real or not.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
There's no way but there's guys out there that know a lot of stuff, man.
They know a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and
crazy
it was interesting to put together your list and kind of compare the order of importance. Your list was prioritized. There were certain things that you were talking about that I had never thought about or heard about or even thought to look for.
Like?
There was a note about the Duker sticker.
Right.
There was a placement / location / reason why the Duker sticker was placed in the place that it was put because of a weld and where the gusset sits.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. And it had to do with the lower border.
Yeah.
And a fitment. I think you said you ran into like a fitment issue.
So it was cut.
It was cut.
Is it cut?
Well, we're going to show it to you. We're going to show it to you. That was on my list of things to check. You said check the sticker.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. We talked about the number plate.
Mm-hmm.
The number plate was a big thing. And the number plate is a big thing in the BMX community and on the forums. And the number plate, that's a buddy. That number plate is like frequently talked about.
Okay.
Is it an RL plate? It's got the no fear on the back. Okay, so that created quite a stir on social media. There was a picture of your number plate that just showed up, and people saw it. They're like, "That's got to be an RL Osborn number plate." That was kind of cool. So, I think you're going to dig that. Whatever that ends up being, I think you're going to dig that.
Yeah.
We talked about serial numbers. So, when I was doing my homework, we put the list together. I talked to Lynn Caston for quite a while. He was very accommodating. And here's what Lynn Caston told me. I thought this was a really cool detail to look for. What Lynn said is he said RL got, if not the first Hazard Yellow, he couldn't remember. He goes, I don't know that he got number 1.
Yeah.
But he got one of the first.
Yeah.
Hazard Yellows off the assembly line. So Lynn's comment was, he goes, we didn't track serial numbers and who got what bike. They used to back in the earlier days. He goes, by 85, we weren't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So he said, make sure that frame carries an early serial number.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, how do I know what an early serial number is? And he said, it's going to be the letters, and it's going to start with a couple of zeros. That's how you know. I said, okay, so there's a nice little tidbit that I got from Lynn. He goes, if that bike's carrying a serial number that's later than that, I can tell you right away it's not the one. Well, what's interesting is when we were talking, you and I were talking serial numbers, and you said, yeah, that was like one of the first RL22 frames, and maybe the first one in yellow.
Yeah.
If somebody's out there that has an earlier serial number Hazard Yellow, that's awesome. But I think it's definitely one of the first in that batch, right? So that was kind of a detail that you brought up and Lynn brought up as well.
Yeah. Did I write a different color RL22 before that yellow one?
I think that was the first.
So that, okay. So, because I always wrote a prototype first, and then, if there's any problems with that, I'd go back to Lynn and we would talk about it. So,
now you mentioned a Mountain Dew commercial. So this is interesting because you asked me when we were talking, you said, is the yellow one the one I wrote in the Mountain Dew commercial? And I said, what Mountain Dew commercial? And you said, I did a Mountain Dew commercial and there's a jump and there's a water thing.
Yeah.
I found it. That commercial is on YouTube. It's awesome, man.
It's
not. It's not. I think it's the bike, I'm guessing, that you had before the yellow one. It looked like it was all white.
So that might have been an RL20.
Probably.
You couldn't tell if it had a top two.
I couldn't. It was like VHS recorded, taped over, uploaded to YouTube. It was kind of grainy, but you could see you and some water and a bike, and it was a great video. It was awesome. But it definitely wasn't a yellow RL22. It's probably the bike that you had before the Hazard, or maybe if there was another one in between somewhere, maybe there was a prototype. Lynn didn't mention anything about prototypes other than that you got like one of the first.
Yeah.
So, and Lynn didn't really have any record keeping, because the thing I was asking Lynn was the same thing that I was asking everybody, which is, does anybody have the serial number? Does Wendy Osborn have the serial? Is there somebody out there that maybe has this thing? And it was a no, a no, a no, a no, a no, and another no.
I'll tell you, I never even knew bikes had serial numbers on them until like
Is that right?
I went online a year ago and people
Seriously?
were talking about tracking bikes. Yeah, I mean, I'd get the bike in a box, I'd take it to Steve Blackey, put it together, and I'd ride it.
So what we're saying, RL, is that I thought it was kind of interesting and entertaining that as much as the BMX community obsesses over serial numbers, right? Because that's the only way we can kind of know that we've got like the one versus like a good fake. Like it's all about serial numbers. Back in the day, not only was it unimportant, you didn't even know that they had it.
Yeah, right?
And it's important for people to hear that.
Yeah.
Because people nowadays are like, well, how is it possible that the bike from RAD never had the serial? What? Why would it? They think it's fishy. It's not.
But the serial number thing got important when John Bilgens and Dominic Phipps, they were recording the history of horror, and they started doing it with serial numbers. They had hundreds of bikes.
Oh.
And those two guys, John sold his collection and bought a house. That's how many bikes he had. And Dominic did the same. I don't know what he did with his bikes, but yeah, that was the first time I heard the big thing about serial numbers. But they documented every single Haro bike. I mean, and Haro actually leaned on them for the history of the company. John Billiams, Dominic Phipps, yeah. So I didn't know it. Haro didn't even know it. You know, the company, and but now it's a big thing.
Well, and now they're valuable. And that might have a lot to do with the importance of serial numbers, is that the value then versus the value and the collectability now, they're valuable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys searching for, putting a lot of their time and effort and money into restoring these bikes.
Yeah.
Last thing you want to do is put your heart and soul into restoration, have a beautiful bike, and some guy comes along and tells you, oh man, that's not what you thought it was.
Yeah.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but somebody faked that thing, or faked the serial, whatever the case may be. Kind of fishy, man. You know, and in today's world, there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of people trying to, you know, it's just the way it is, man. So you got to really cover it.
Like anything.
Like anything.
Money,
that's right.
There's fraud.
That's right. Exactly. And in the BMX thing, freestyle bikes, there's quite a bit of that nowadays. You know, they've gotten pretty valuable. So no serial number. Lynn didn't have one. You didn't have one. Didn't know it had one, right? It's awesome. Didn't know it had one. It has one, by the way.
It does?
It does have one.
Really?
It has one. I've seen it. I've looked at it a couple times. So no serial number. So we're doing this whole thing, no serial. We just don't have one. And now we're going off of some interesting data and some facts that you had shared with me. I was like, okay, I got a pretty good list here. This is cool.
Yeah.
I was able to track down and talk to over email Shinglehead.
No, really? You got a hold of him?
Previous owner. I figured.
He owned the yellow one?
He did.
So that had to have something to do with Ford.
Yes.
And then
Yes,
there's
it
a red
did.
one in there too, right?
Yeah. So the way you kind of piece this whole thing together, right? Because it's a prior owner of the bike that had it, and it had never been out to the public yet. So it was yours, and then it sounds like it got kind of disassembled, or some of the parts got taken off for a 86 red. Did you ride a red RL22 after the yellow one?
I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can't say, you know, the yellow one is one I see all the time on TV and on everything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I rode a red one. I might even rode a chrome one. But you know,
It's been a while.
I wouldn't put any money on it. Not that. I know I definitely rode the yellow ones. I saw it in the movie. But that's funny. Shinglehead had it. And
Shinglehead had it.
yeah.
And not only did he have it, he saw it at a show and signed it. So you're going to see a signature on. You're going to see two signatures on.
He saw it at a show?
Yeah.
Wait. He owned it first and then sold it to somebody that showed it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so it wasn't shown and then he got it.
Correct.
Okay.
It has two autographs on it that you'll find interesting. Shingleheads.
Yeah.
And this was at a Rockville bike show, you know, after his ownership. This would have
Okay.
been in the mid 2000s-ish. I think.
Rockville BMX?
Yeah, 05. I think it was 05. They had a big bike show, and the owner at the time, the guy that owned the bike at the time,
Yeah.
took it to the show, and Shinglehead signed it, and your father signed it.
Really?
And I have a picture
Wow.
of the bike on a table, and there's an arm and a Sharpie pen and a tattoo. So your dad must be right-handed.
A crow. A crow.
Yeah, it looked like a crow or bird,
Yeah, it's my dad.
kind of on his forearm, up his arm, and there's a gentleman signing this bike.
Yeah.
I was like, huh. And I saw the Osborn. I didn't know if it was I didn't know which Osborn. I didn't know if it was your signature, if you had seen the bike, or if it was your dad. It was your dad's signature.
Wow.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Now,
I didn't know that. I
now
didn't
here's
know
what's
Shinglehead signed it
interesting.
either.
He signed it. Now what's interesting about your father's signature, okay, so there's a lot of folks out there that see your dad's signature and assume and think that means something other than what it actually meant.
Right.
Okay. Now I've talked to your dad about that signature. And I talked to your dad to make sure that that was him. That tattoo is like, is this really you? I said, I went to some great lengths, man, to try to sort this thing out. I researched this thing to death.
No kidding.
Talked to your dad, Montana, art gallery, right?
Yeah.
Found him, talked to him, cool dude. And I sent him this picture. He's like, oh, that's me. That's my tattoo. I tell you right away, that's my tattoo, and that's my signature. I said, were you signing that bike to verify, validate? Did it mean something? He's like, no.
No.
That's what he said.
He wouldn't know.
He goes, I wouldn't know. And why is that bike such a big deal? Is that the one that was in the commercial? Okay, so just to put some context around RAD, the movie, cult following, right? Your dad is like, I think I remember that bike, the yellow one, from the commercial thing. RAD. I think he was talking about RAD. But it was more than a commercial, but he kind of knew
I
something.
did a lot of commercials,
He
so I don't remember if I was on a bike or not.
He goes, I did a lot of autographs that day. That one was just another autograph.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So it didn't mean what a lot of people thought it meant. A lot of people put some heavy credibility on Bob Osborn signing off that that's the RAD bike. Talking
No
about
way.
it. Bob said, nope. Didn't mean squat.
I'll add a little bit to that. He was in his office and so devoted to making that magazine perfect. You know, I mean, he's
That was the pursuit.
perfectionist. Yeah, that I would be surprised if he knew any color of bike I rode. You know, that I mean, I don't even remember the bikes I rode so much, but yeah, he had his brain full of doing the magazine. So there's no way he would, know that.
One thing he did remember is we talked about the number plate. And he goes, that number plate, I emailed him a couple pictures, and he goes, don't remember the bike, my signature doesn't carry any value, doesn't mean anything other than it's just my signature. Could have been 25 RL20ii I signed that weekend, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the number plate caught his eye. And he said, there's something unique about that number plate. So what is that, Bob? And he said, it's the way the stickers are laid out. He goes, the placement of the stickers is exactly the way that RL would have done up one of his number plates. That looks like an RL plate. You'd probably want to show it to him to make sure, but he was kind of digging the whole number plate thing, and he said that looks like something that would have come off of one of your bikes, or at least spent some time on one of your bikes at some point in time. And then it had the no fear written on the back of it. He said that is also good evidence that could be an RL number.
Yeah.
So he was really into that whole thing, which was really cool. But the signature don't mean much.
Did I tell you why I wrote that on there? Just to add to the story.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
You did.
Did I mention it?
You did mention
Okay.
it to me, but if we're recording this, I'd love my son to hear that. That would be awesome.
So, I'm not sure where Mike Buff was at this point, but we toured so much. Mike Buff and I, we never practiced because we were in a plane every single day or just traveling all over the world and never got time, right? So there's all these guys getting really good, like Woody, Martin, Eddie Fiola, Mike Dominguez, Brian Blyther, And so I started concentrating on contests and getting better, picking up my game, right?
Yeah.
While I'm out traveling, these guys
guys
don't
are
practice
practicing,
every day.
yeah.
And they were getting good, And so I put no fear on there because I wanted my airs to get higher. I wanted more variations and stuff like that. And it helped. It reminded me, and stuff. But that's why it was on there, because I had to pick up my ramp game.
That's so awesome.
Dominguez and Fiola were and Blyther and Donovan Ritter, there were a whole bunch of Hugo Gonzalez. Guys were just going so high. And I'm like, man, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with it.
That's so awesome. And I love that because when we were talking about the bike back in the early days of me trying to figure out what it was and what it wasn't, we had talked about psychology in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that resonated with me is that I'm a retired powerlifter. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the mental aspect of sports. We're trying to do a sport at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
right? The mental game. And how big of a factor it is. And as a powerlifter, that's a huge part of powerlifting is you're going to go in and try to do something that the human body, it's just not about health.
Yeah.
Not people argue it is, it's not. It's nothing about health. It's about moving as much weight as you can possibly move at the cost of your joints and your
Yes.
tendons and ligaments
Yes.
and pop blood vessels in your eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right.
So I get the mental
Yeah.
aspect and the mental game and being able to look down and see no fear and get the mind ready to push it.
Yeah.
And to push it hard. And it'd be interesting, No Fear, the brand, it became a huge clothing line. I think I jumped on the No Fear train probably late 80s, early 90s, but I think 85, I think that was before the No Fear clothing line was even a thing.
I thought about that too. I don't know. You're saying like maybe it came from.
I'm thinking that maybe you were doing it before it was even a thing as a clothing brand.
Might have been, not that, the success of that company had anything to do with the name. Success of a company is how the company's run.
Yeah.
How good the product is. But I always wondered if that's where they got the name, but I had no idea.
It caught on. The same, wherever it originated from, it caught on, and they ran a heck of a clothing line.
Yeah, I remember
In the
that.
late 80s, early 90s, No Fear, everything. And he said that the bike ended up in your dad's, and you'll have to help me here because I'm probably going to screw this up, but somewhere at the BMX Action headquarters at Wizard Publications, I think was Jeff's, the way he put it, there was like an area, dude. There was like a parts pile or a place where bikes would go to rest.
Yeah.
And that some parts from the Hazard Yellow 85 got donated and dedicated to your new build, which I think was a Red 86, and I don't remember who I heard that from, but I've talked to Gork. I've talked to a lot of people, so I might be getting my people mixed up. But basically, some of the parts came off the Yellow, they went over to your red bike, that was your new bike that you got to ride in 86 or whatever.
Right.
And then there was kind of the RAD bike was left, and it was a frame and a fork, and the bars and the stem and the plate and some stuff was there. It was missing wheels. I think the wheels were gone. I think the cranks were gone. Pedals gone. And the seat post, we can talk more about the seat post later. The seat post is an interesting subject all in itself.
Is it a TRP?
It is. And it's a real one.
Mm-hmm.
But to clear the air, it is not the original one that came off the bike.
Okay.
And that information has been twisted and spun and whatever, and I am not convinced that that is your old seat post. I'm convinced that it's a real one, and it's legit. I don't think it's yours. That's what my research came up with. Okay, there we go. But it has one, so we're good at least there. I've got my list. I've done all the data collection a guy can do, and boom, I'm on a plane and I'm headed out of Portland, heading for New Jersey. It's in February and it's snowy and icy and it's a mess, freaking mess, man. But the seller of the bike picked me up. Everything he said, let me stay at his house. Just you couldn't ask for. It was amazing, man. What a cool dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
What a cool dude. You couldn't meet a better guy. And when I saw the bike in person for the first time, keep in mind, no money's changed hands. Not even a deposit at this point. Just a verbal agreement over the phone. I show up, I'm there, I'm looking at the bike, I'm like, whoa, okay, checking it out. And he said, take your time. If there's anything that spooks you, anything that looks suspect, man, there's no hard feelings. You're not committed to anything. He said, I've got a hotel prepaid around the corner. It's all taken care of, ready to go. If you want to crash there for the night, you don't want the bike, we're good. If you want the bike and you want to stay here tonight, that's okay too. Like, it's totally
This guy's a human being we're talking about.
no pressure. It was just awesome. It was awesome. And these are the guys that you hope to deal with.
That.
There aren't many left.
Yeah.
At least I don't come across many, but I came across one.
Yeah.
In this story, man.
Yeah.
Awesome dude.
Great.
Awesome dude. And of course, I got to see Rocky stuff, and I got to see 80s stuff, and comic book stuff, and toy stuff. World-class collector that went beyond bikes.
Yeah.
Bikes just happened to be one of his things. So I get out my R.L. Osborn list that you helped me put together, and I'm going through things, and we're looking at stickers, and we're looking at number plates, and then we're looking at serial numbers, because that was a big thing. I've got notes from Lancaster.
Wow.
I talked to previous owners. I talked to Shingle Head. I talked to Gore. and I couldn't find anything that didn't jive. I was trying to find something that didn't jive because again, no money's changed hands, so it's not too late to get back on a plane and head home, right? You're out the airfare, no big deal.
No big deal.
So we can't find a single thing that doesn't jive. And Eric, I was scrutinizing decals and stickers and flipping it upside down, and I was looking at serial numbers. I wanted to make sure the frame was still original paint. And that was one thing that you and I had talked about, was when we talked about stickers, the BFD, the Duker, the location of the stickers, the condition of the decals, one of the things that you had brought up that I hadn't thought of was make sure that if there's anything faded, if there's paint that's faded, those stickers have been on the bike since new.
Yeah.
So if something looks different in terms of the color of yellow, like if something's faded different, or if something's been repainted, it might be a little suspect, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going over this frame, and it's all original paint. There's no touch-up paint. Now it's scruffy, by the way. It's scraped up, scuffed up.
We came up with excuse me for interrupting, but it's like when we refer to old rugs, and it's really important when you're buying an antique rug that has patina, which is the age, right? Mm-hmm. And we were saying that'd be a good word to describe some of these bikes, but.
Well, I think when you see the Hazard Yellow RL, you go, it's patina.
Yeah.
but it's aged, and you had mentioned when we were talking that you traveled a lot with it, that the bike had seen everywhere. You were talking Europe, planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yes, all over the world. Yeah.
I mean, it's seen a lot. And when you see the paint and the condition of the paint, you're like, this looks like a bike that's been on a lot of planes and it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it tells the story, it's got this DNA to it, which is really cool. So spent a lot of time going over the bike. I told the seller, I said, man, I've got a good list. This list came from a good source. And I didn't tell him who would help me put together the list. Mm-hmm. At this point, he's like, you got to have the list there. And you're spending a lot of time. What are you doing over there? I said, I just got some stuff I got to look at. I said, the bike checks out. I said, I have tried to find something wrong. I can't find anything wrong. And I said,
I got to say, man, the research you did is, I've never heard of that. I mean, I know guys go through some serious stuff, but you did a good job.
Thank you, man.
And you really covered your ass.
Thank you. Well, I come from the car world, so my other passion is collector cars.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this discipline in doing the homework assignment and doing it to the best of your ability and talking to previous owners comes from the car hobby.
Yeah.
Making some mistakes along the way, learning from them. Like, better not do that again. Better talk to the previous owner. Better walk. If it's not working out, I better walk from the deal. Like, that's a car thing, especially when you get into collector cars and valuable things and that sort of deal. Yeah. So it's kind of like a car thing, really. Everything checked out, and I said, I told Eric, I said, man, I got to tell you who helped me. I said, I got some help on this list. I got some good help. He's like, oh, that's awesome, man. Did you talk to a previous owner? Like, where did you come up with the list? I said, I talked to a previous owner. I said, I talked to the previous owner.
Yeah.
I talked to the original owner. He goes, no way, man. He's like, how did that all, what? So this is when guys start to kind of freak out, man, because of what you did and the influence that you had on a generation of kids that loved bikes.
Yeah.
Like, he was one of, just like me, he was the young kid, fell in love with you and RAD and the red line, the whole deal, dude. And so I told him that you had helped me with this list. And he's like, oh my gosh, man, he thought that was just awesome. So I said, bike checks out. I'm going to buy the bike. I bought the bike. We boxed up the bike. And then it took me 2 days to get home because I left during Oregon's worst storm that we've had in years. Flying home. Got home with the bike. Total nightmare. Seattle airport was shut down. Portland airport was shut down. Snow, ice, power outages. Nightmare. I finally get home with the bike in a box. And I'll shoot you the pictures of it sitting in front of the airport in Portland in a box with ice on the ground. It's kind of a crazy picture, dude. I get home and no power. We had no power like during power outage. Cold house, dark house. my wife's like, you're home from this adventure, and I needed you here. Like, we've been cold, the house is freezing cold, and we don't know where you are. So I said, well, and she was awesome about it. I said, well, I got this box. Like, check this out, this box right here. It's awesome. Let's open it. And I've got a little guy. His name is Reese. Reese and Drake and I, we got flashlights out, man. This is a true story. We got flashlights out, opened the box, took out the frame and fork, rear wheel was still attached, front wheel was loose, bars were loose. And under flashlights, man, we reassembled it.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
We reassembled it in the dark.
Yeah.
And then my little guy got to sit on it, and I took a picture of him, and Drake got to check it out. During this whole adventure, whatever you want to call it, it's been a 99%. It's been a 99.
I'm going to ask you a question. Have you had anybody question you? Have anybody else popped up saying, I have the original bike?
I got a phone call recently from a gentleman that doubts the bike.
But does he have the original? I want to know if there's somebody out there that says, no, I have the original.
No.
Just because somebody doubts it, that doesn't mean anything. I
No.
want to know if someone else is saying, I know I got the original.
No.
Okay.
This
so
bike
that's
here is, even though people will poke holes at 99%, you don't know for sure. You don't know for sure. RL hasn't seen it. RL's the only guy. RL do. Said, okay. And Eric and I talked about this when I was back in New Jersey.
Right.
I said, I'm 99% sure this is it.
Yeah.
And he said, me too, right? He's like, well, when I bought it, I was 90. Everybody that's owned it up to this point is 99% sure. Okay, attaboy.
So I think we should be able to cure that
Awesome.
problem you have.
And Gork provided another little valuable piece of information outside of what I got from you and from Lynn. Gork had something kind of interesting. Gork had 3 pictures of the bike before it went out to the public. So it spent some time at the Seattle Bike Supply Museum. Did you know that it was kind of hanging out in Seattle for a while? It was kind of it spent some time there. And up to that point, the bike had still been within the circle, right? RL Osborn circle. It was, we had Chinglehead, we had Gork, we had, it's just kind of in that Team Club Homeboy arena, right? And up to the point where Gork had it at SBS, it was still kind of in the circle and it never gone out to the public, never been sold or anything like that. He goes, I've got 3 pictures of the bike right before it left that I can give you. Like, this is the real RAD. I can send you 3 pictures of the real RAD bike. He's like, I can't tell you that you have it or not, but I can show you what it looked like the last time my 2 eyes saw it.
Yeah.
Well, his pictures were awesome because his pictures showed some paint. I wouldn't call them defects or flaws, but I would say very unique scrapes, very unique scratches. Decal things that were 100% consistent with some things that we had talked about. Like, okay, so this is the real RAD bike I'm looking at in these 3 pictures. I zoom in, okay, there's a scrape, there's a scuff, there's a decal, there's a thing. The number plate, there's a great picture of the number plate that he sent me. So see if there's anything different between these 3 pictures I've got for you versus this bike that you just flew out from New Jersey to buy. Check it out. And so I talked to Gork before and I talked to him after, but he sent me these pictures and the pictures were great, man. And so it was great to get pictures of something that we knew was the real thing.
Did it confirm the pictures?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. So that's
I'm
a lot of
glad to
talking.
hear that because for some reason Gork back in the day was very just hardcore, loved BMX and freestyle and all that stuff. So he paid attention to probably some things I should have paid attention to. But I knew he would have some good input on that. So
He was
about
awesome.
the pictures.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He was awesome.
What do you think about all this,
I
Pat?
think it's great. I think it's pretty awesome, man. You feeling pressure?
I'm not,
No,
because
no,
I
you know
can't do
what?
anything about it.
No,
you know?
no, exactly.
I mean,
You know what? Yeah, it sounds like it's the bike.
that's why I'm not feeling pressure too. I
Yeah,
think is
'cause all
because
that
his
research-
research is so good,
It's so thorough and everything that he's talked about. That
and no one has challenged it.
no one's challenged it. Like you said, is somebody else claiming that they have it?
Yeah, no,
They can dispute all they want, but
yeah,
they're not there looking at the bike either. So
Yeah.
how can they dispute something they haven't really seen in person?
yeah.
This is awesome, man. I think it's really cool.
Weird, I haven't seen this bike in a long time.
Yeah, this is cool.
I almost don't want to look.
I know. I know.
We're going to talk about this bike in a little while too. That is a General that David Clark, I'm going to have to check his name just to make sure, built. And there's some trick stuff on here.
Should get a picture
But
of
that's
the
a beautiful
original
bike.
on this one, too. Cool, man. All right.
So here it comes. This is the one.
Okay, from New Jersey to Oregon, Oregon to California, got something to show you.
Can you do this?
Yeah.
Got something to show you. Well, I'm gonna let you do the honors, man.
All right.
I'm gonna let you do the honors. I'll support the bike, and I'll let you do the honors.
Wow, man.
This right here, I know that is my writing. I remember writing it, how I wrote it, how I cut it out.
NRL, is that handwritten on a like a masking tape?
A mask.
You
It was
think? Is
masking
that a
tape.
ma- a
I believe
masking
it was
tape
masking-
backer?
and it's obviously faded. The
And that's
tape
probably
changed
why it's
color.
kind of a brownish
Yeah.
color, right? Just
Right.
age.
Yeah, because it's probably just a regular kind of that yellowish type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guarantee you that's my writing right there. And the bars, and the scratches that are on here. Man, those rocks were big back then, huh? I can't see any reason why. I can't see any faults in this thing. The stickers. The sticker right here.
Yeah, and I remember when we talked early on, we were talking about the border. And I
Right.
think it was it a placement situation because of this welded gusset?
Well,
Or
that and I cut it out, so you can see there's no black here, but there's
The border.
black here, right?
Yep.
And it's thicker here and thicker here, so obviously it's cut out, and I remember cutting that out.
There's some really good close-up shots of this both sides of the bike, both
Yeah.
sides of the frame. So there's some great pictures of this on both sides. And I kind of took it a step further. And what I was really getting into is I was trying to figure out distance here and distance here. And where this red line decal starts versus where the Duker ends. And see how this distance is a little bit different?
Yeah.
This is narrow, we'll call it narrow. This is a little bit wider. And the pictures, fortunately, are good enough that you can actually zoom in and you can scrutinize exactly where the BFD sits in relation to these two locations here. And so if this sticker was too far up or too far down, or
Right.
whatever the case may be.
Right.
You know, I thought that could maybe be another way to verify and validate the bike.
Well, and this, I remember it was a bigger sticker, and I wanted to put it on there, but I had to cut it out to make it fit. And you can see it's not a perfect cut.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where
Yep.
no one would make a sticker like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the cut shouldn't be perfect, and I think your
Right.
comment was, if it's perfect, it's not the sticker I put on that bike,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So that was
Right.
really a cool detail.
And I used to stand on my crank a lot.
So I was going to ask you about, and this has never come up with the people that I've talked to, the wear here,
Mm-hmm.
and in this area of the bike, is that from a particular trick?
Probably a cherry picker.
Cherry picker wear?
I would have 1 foot here and I think 1 foot up here. But the foot, my ankle would be like grinding right here.
Which over, excessive use, I guess. would
Yeah, you
eventually
can tell
wear
that
through.
has not been cut. That was worn out.
That's a worn, that's
a
worn.
worn spot.
Yeah.
And you could see that it even wore down here a little bit.
There was another detail that was kind of along the lines of Duker stickers and trimming and placement that we had talked about, and it had to do with a modification that you made to this stem. If I recall correctly, originally this stem didn't have this
Right.
threaded cable running
Right.
through. Is that correct? Originally, it would have just been
I'm
flush and
pretty
blank?
sure on that. I'm pretty sure on that.
So this hole is drilled off center slightly.
Is it?
Slightly. It's slightly too
Right.
far
Right. That way.
that way. And you can tell that that hole was added later.
Yeah.
And you can tell it was probably done with a hand drill and either eyeballed or measured, lose them cap, hole, yep, kind of a thing. And that modification, correct me if I'm wrong, RL, but wasn't that your thing? Didn't you come up with that concept?
Steve Blackie from the Bicycle Source built all my bikes. I don't remember drilling.
So he would have modded it himself?
I remember I ran a purple stem, and this is a tough neck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember running a purple stem, and there's no bearings in that rotor,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because everybody's like, I was talking to this other guy had a General, like a red General, and he had a bearing rotor. And to me, that was the first time I ever saw a bearing. He goes, no, you used to ride a bearing rotor back in the day. I'm like, I don't remember ever. So this is what I remember. And this, I'm guessing Steve Blackie would have done that. I don't
Okay.
remember drilling
Okay.
my stem. When I look at it, there's no question in my mind.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Now, someone could dispute it and say this and that and everything, but to me, when I built that, put that number plate together, and the thing on the back, the no fear on the back, I remember doing all that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I remember running brakes with this. I remember the MX part. Are these original?
I don't think so. There's a couple of items that definitely aren't from when you owned the bike.
Yeah.
Now, some of the stuff falls into a gray area. Some of the stuff is solid, some of the stuff is gray. The cranks have been disputed back and forth and back and forth. The sources that I've talked to, and I'm going to say the most credible of the bunch, man, from the information that I can gather up from the most credible sources, I'm convinced that the cranks that were on this bike when the movie was made are long gone, and that these are not the original cranks. Same thing goes for the wheels. Same thing goes for the seat and the seat post.
How about the sprocket? Did I run a sprocket that big?
Well, so there's a
thing was
picture.
massive.
Yeah, there's a picture from. I don't know exactly what the date of the picture is, but there's a picture of this bike missing the cranks and the sprocket and the pedals. And I think somewhere along the way, what somebody has done is have tried to kind of put it back together as accurately as they could.
Uh-huh.
But I am convinced that wheel set, the cranks, the sprocket, the pedals, seat and seat post are not as it was when you last owned the bike. The deal with the TRP seat post is this seat post is a real TRP seat post. Not the one you had, but the real McCoy that came off of another one of Shinglehead's bikes.
Right.
Somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
He had. And that the kind of the history of that seat post, it's well known. It's well known to be the real McCoy,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool, you know. And I think aside from having the original, which hasn't turned up, at least the rocks I've flipped over, nobody's ever come up and said, "Hey, I kind of know where that thing is. I'd
Right.
be all over it." If
Right.
anybody comes across this video that it has that would
Right.
be awesome. That would be awesome, you know. The goal being to try to keep the integrity of the bike together and put as many original components, if anything's floating around out there still, that originally came off this bike. This is kind of where it belongs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd be great to put it back on. You know, your original seat. I have no idea where the heck.
Yeah, I don't know about the seat, but you know, I mean, man, this is a real reflection on Lincoln. I mean, the tapered bars, the capped, bent
So awesome.
right here,
That detail is so killer.
and this is before people were tapering stuff, right? Tapered fork, tapered back here, tapered here. Yeah, all that history and the fame of the bike, you know, and then the quality that Lincaston. I remember the meeting. This is one thing I remember clear. Lincaston, dude. I hope I said dude remember his name right, but Lynn's engineer. And they would not give me what I wanted unless it worked. You know, like when I was talking about, I told them I didn't want my platforms out. You know, we're like, well, maybe it can swell, and then Duke would say, well, cranks are going to hit. And then Lynn would think about it and come up with something. But I mean, we went over, which they don't do these nowadays. You know, that's why they say if you strip the paint off, like the top 10 bikes, it's probably the same bike. You know, and that's possibly true. But this, every point we went over with Lynn and Gene, Lynn and Duke. Duke, jeez. I don't know, but I remember being in the meeting on this, and this was nothing that was rushed. You know, the thought was in it, the geometry was in it. And, you know, the way I felt about it when it came out, it was a groundbreaking bike, you know. Just as the RL20 was, too. Same thing with Harlow's first bike. You know, those bikes kind of set the terms. I mean, look at the end of here, right here. It's capped. You know, it's kind of bent in and welded, not smashed with a big fat weld.
Yep.
You know, little things like that. The way this comes in, it's got a nice strong weld on it.
Yeah.
And this is right, you know, this is for, right? Bendix hub.
Oh, really?
That's how old this thing is. Yeah, we were running with the brake arm.
I'll be darned.
There's a bit, you know, the brake arm that came out and bolted in, and you'd
Attachment point.
you break those clips all the time. They'd be around the frame. So Lynn put that in like that. This rotor stem, the frame, I would say, from my opinion, 100%. That's my
Awesome, man.
yellow
Awesome.
bike. And as far as I know, I only had one yellow 22. Have you heard about anything?
No, Lynn was talking about a yellow bike.
Yeah.
One, a single, only.
Yeah.
You know, there was never, of all the folks that I've talked to and actually talked to some people that were there when they filmed the intro to RAD. That was an interesting conversation.
Right.
Met a couple of people that were there when the intro was filmed. Whoa, man. I mean, for the kid that was watching that movie, like, you were actually there and the fog came up and like people describe it because they were there. It was just amazing, man. It kind of takes you back to that day.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was pretty wild. But no, there was never any talk about there being more than one. Man, I met you when I was 12, and I'll be honest with you, Earl, I was a starstruck kid. The influence of the pros and what you guys were doing on bikes, we were just kind of wannabes, man. Like we had a half pipe, we do some cool tricks, we thought we were hot stuff, and then we go to a contest, we're like, whoa, man, like this is amazing. And you know, that's the impression that you guys left on a generation of kids, man.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us.
That's a big compliment.
Well, no, it's genuine, man. It's genuine, and it's crazy to think. You know, the last time I met you, you know, I had my Sharpie. I was a little kid, just like whoa, just mind blown, right?
Yeah.
Like meeting the pros of the day and getting your signature, and Martins and Eddies and Wilkersons and you know, Woody's and like all those guys. Those were like the magazine dudes.
Yeah.
You guys were like the magazine guys, right?
Yeah.
And so here you were, you know, competing and riding these bikes at such a high level, and then getting to meet you guys and get the signatures, and then you hold on to this T-shirt all these years because it's like this memory from when you were a kid, man. It's pretty awesome. And then you fast forward to today,
Yeah.
and there's still this passion and this pursuit and this fire lit inside of us, man, to continue down this path
Yeah.
of the riders and
Yeah.
the bikes
Yeah.
and the items and it's amazing. It's amazing.
It
I was
is.
kind of saying here to even have this conversation.
No. You know, I look at it as we all shared this whole thing, you know, the whole bike thing and the riding. And, you know, I've explained this online that, you know, you guys were as much of the sport as we were. You guys bought bikes, you went to the shows, bought the T-shirts and stuff, and there wouldn't be an industry without people that were into it. So it's kind of an agreement, like, hey, I'm going to ride, I'm going to practice every day, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the shows, I'm going to buy the bikes, and it's a joint effort. You know what I mean? It's not just us pros.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I appreciate the compliments, but it's also that all these kids decided to choose this sport, you know? So I look at it as there's I don't know how many people, millions of people, that we all share this huge part of our life, you know, maybe the best part of our life, being a child, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty amazing bond that seems to surface without everybody.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you know, and I just, you know, the other thing is I think, yeah, the bike is famous, it's been all over the world, won a lot of contests on it, it's definitely the bike, but you know, then you got to look at, it's a piece of art, the way the bike was made, this thing was so far advanced from anything else that was out in BMX or freestyle, and so you got that part of it too.
It's true.
You know, it really set the standard. It does. And you know, there's something going on with RAD. I mean, the attention that's getting it to. I mean, I had a guy call me a couple weeks ago that's finishing a documentary about the movie, and he wants to shoot the opening, closing, same tricks and all this stuff.
What?
Yeah, it's a documentary. There's just a lot of. Pat was telling me too. He's hearing a lot about it. There's just a lot of influence, a lot of energy and excitement about the movie. And it seems like it's coming to a peak.
That's awesome.
I'm just waiting for him to say there's going to be a RAD 2. You know?
Well,
I don't know. I haven't heard
ready?
that. But, so I want to thank Dustin and Drake. I want to thank you guys for bringing this thing down, man. It's made my day, my year. To see that thing again is really an amazing feeling.
I'm honored, man.
And congrats that you got that thing, man.
Thank you.
That's cool. There's so much history behind that.
It's nice to know it's in good hands.
Thank you, man. And,
Yeah,
You're
right.
welcome.
and the plan is, you know, so here's the next owner at some point down the road. He's the next owner. And when we were talking about this trip and this whole thing that we're doing here, I thought it was really important for Drake to be part of this. You know,
Totally.
because there's nothing better than being there and, you know, and being able to tell the story with good information and getting the facts straight. You know, that was really important to me. So as we
Yes.
talk about, you know, future generations and carrying the flame and carrying the torch, like that's the torch and that's the next gen. So
I was
I'm really
thinking that
glad-
same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
just feel fortunate that he was able to be part of this, you know, because eventually it's going to be your responsibility.
You'll look back on this someday.
He's like, oh,
years from now.
yeah, great, Dad.
Years from now, you'll say, "Hey, I was there when they were talking about the."
Yeah,
I was
that's
right
pretty
there.
special.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
a one shot deal.
Yeah, very special.
Super cool.
All right, let's go check some bikes out.
Right on, man.
Some bikes.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing for it.
Oh, wait, I gotta get a picture of these two bikes together.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
not
that's a tribute to your bike.
Oh, well, I know,
You know?
but look at him
But
together.
I mean, it is. I mean, the guy, when he called me on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, man," because I started building one, like I cut it all up, and I was going through hell, man, trying to find parts for an old bike and welding and cutting and stuff, and he said he was going to do that. I'm like, yeah, right, you know. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he had a frame and he was on his way. So we talked throughout it. And he was talking about this color scheme, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I couldn't picture it. Well, when the bike came, I was like, holy crap,
Dude, he nailed it. And I think the owner of this will dig this.
Yes.
This is pretty. The timing of just how it worked out.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is David Clark's bike.
David Clark.
He's the guy that built that thing, and man, what a job. Such a nice job.